We'll have the prayer.
Let us pray. In the name of Jesus, God, we thank you for this day. We pray blessings on this board and all that makes it up. We ask that you give us wisdom as we do your will and your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now roll call from, starting with my right,
Larry High.
Donald Collins.
J.B. Loring.
Joe Jones. Ralph Payne.
And next on the agenda, you've all had a chance to read the minutes, and if there's any additions, deletions, or changes, please let me know. If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as read.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carried. Appear before the board, our Assistant Commissioner.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning.
Members, how are you?
Morning.
Well, glad you made it here safe
Thank you.
and got parking.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So there are some improvements. We
Great,
wanted.
we appreciate it.
You are very welcome, especially on a cool morning like this. It would make a walk brisk. We are. You all are the first one. The administration is going to begin doing this annually to come before the board and to talk about your financial picture, your operation, things that we're doing, kind of give you some insight into where you are and your licensees, your revenues, and your expenses. We think it's important that you all are plugged into that and have some understanding of and an opportunity to ask questions. So that's the reason that we're here today. We just got our budget closed numbers, I think, about 3 weeks ago. And so Kimberly did a great job in short order of putting this stuff together for us and getting me prepared to come here and tell you about the shape of your business. So I'm going to try to run through it at any point. If you've got questions about anything, feel free to stop and ask. We've laid out there a copy of your report. Have you all got that? It's this.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just going to kind of run through and hit the high points. And like I said, feel free to stop at any point and ask questions if you've got any. And you can, going back, you can see from starting fiscal year 9-10, we've got a 4-year picture here, so you can also look at kind of what your trends have been. And salaries and wages, which is the first line, you actually you spent less this past year than you have done in the previous 3 years. In part, that's due to having part of the year where you did not have a director. But it's also, this factors in that you did have raises to your staff. So there was some increase there. So if there had been a director, that would have been probably in line with where you're at, where you had been. Your bottom line payroll expenditures, including your benefits, longevity payments, was still down again. It was $173,936, which is the lowest it's been in 4 years. Then if you drop down to other expenses, your travel is substantially lower than it had been in 9-10 and 10 and 11. Part of that is due to we have purchased vehicles for all of the inspectors, or we're leasing vehicles now for all the inspectors. We looked at it, the state looked at it actually, and determined that it was less expensive for us to provide leased vehicles than to do the mileage reimbursement, which is what we had historically done. So that's saving you money. If you move down then to the bottom, you'll see the state professional services. That includes that vehicle number. While that number is higher than it had been in the previous 3 years, that's what we attribute that to. Your total expenditures were right in line. Again, if you go back to 9 and 10 and look at your total expenses of $81,389, in fiscal year 12 and 13, they were $61,729. So your board, your office staff is doing a great job managing y'all's money. And then if you go down, I want you to pay special attention to your revenues. If you look at the trend over the 4 years, You're right in line. This past year was 418, 814. Previous 2 years you were in 420s and 430 range. We've also started this year pulling out your complaint revenue so that you can see how much revenue you're actually getting from complaints. In years past, that's just been lumped into your revenue, and it kind of gives us a better picture. And this past year, you all had $10,250 in civil penalty revenue. All that, if you go to the bottom, and I actually asked Kimberly before the meeting to look back, you are slowly eating away at the balance, the negative reserve balance that you've had since 2002. I was surprised it had gone back that far. But if you look at the past year, 12-13, you contributed $36,294 to your reserve balance. The previous year you did $37,457. Again, keeping in mind that you did have raises and other things in there. Your balance is now at $83,038. We expect that in 2 years to 3 years that you will have that balance completely wiped out. That's been there since 2002. We're slowly paying down the debt. So,
Yeah.
and again, I attribute that to the good operation and the good management of your staff. The past year, you had 7,227 licensees active. Kimberly's keeping me straight over here. And we look at this to kind of see where you're at. As a percentage of reg boards, the number of licensees, you are 3.1126. You don't have this information in front of you. The number of complaints, you're 2.84%. And so you are less trouble, I'll say, than some of the boards. Your licensees are doing better than average on getting in trouble. So, also wanted to point out to you that by moving over here, even though you got nicer space and parking, we're saving you $180 a month in rent. Your space is a little bit smaller, but it's more efficient, and that is translating into a reduction in cost to your licensees. There, we have been going through the core meetings, which is our new licensing system that we are purchasing. Actually, today they're attending a demonstration of the new system. The entire staff is, and that's going very well. We think that's going to again just kind of fold into these more efficient initiatives that we're working on to save you all money, to make the experience that your licensees have when they're renewing or they're applying better, quicker, and to get them through the process. The also implemented, these next two items are both governor's initiatives, the Notify system, which, have any of you all signed up for that?
I have.
You have? All
And we
right.
talked about it last session,
Okay.
so
We did.
yes, that's a great thing.
Great. So next month, all of you will be signed up, right?
We're signed up at the school, our
Good.
school
I
signed.
don't know what I'm signed up or not. I don't remember signing anything.
Well, it is a very beneficial, I think, to everybody, to you all, to keep you in the loop on what's going on.
Yeah.
The same information is going out to the licensees, and it kind of will probably prompt you about things that you otherwise wouldn't have known about. The fact that we can immediately send you out happenings over at the legislature.
Now, does this have to be email?
Yes, sir.
By choice, I will not have email.
All right, Jay.
When I was in the council, I was getting about 200 a day, and I can't stand email.
Well, it is very helpful, and more
Yeah.
and more, especially younger people. My 7-year-old is better at working on the iPad than I am.
Right.
And that is the way that they're used to conducting their lives, whether it be their personal life, their business life, their school life. They are used to that, and it is making information more quickly available to you. And so we encourage you to sign up, even some of the beginners like JB. I wish you'd give it a try. It's a governor's initiative. We're the second agency other than the governor's office in the state to get it implemented. So we're proud of that. And again, I'll thank Kimberly for that. She is bulldogs those kinds of things for. The customer-focused government is the second initiative that the governor has talked about, and we are I would say about 2/3 of the way through of training. Every state employee will have to participate in the customer-focused government training, And kind of in a nutshell, it's the governor's idea of the way that the state government should operate, and it should be customer focused. And customer focus is not just external; it's internal. It's people it's you all. You are my customer. You are Director Camusio's customer. And anyone that we do business with or that we have interaction with that relies on us for any piece of information is a customer. And the hope is that by raising the bar on that across the board, that will translate into better service, more efficient service for everybody. And the staff has had a great time. I've participated in all the customer-focused government training so far, I think. Kimberly and Rachel Powers have been conducting those. They have done an amazing job, and I think the staff has we get to go to lots of trainings, let me tell you. And the staff, though, at these particularly, has genuinely enjoyed it. When they left, they felt like they got something out of it, and I think it's really going to help change the mentality, certainly to the public, of what government can be. I think the governor's slogan is "Great people, great service," and that's what we want to do. Just like, simple things, getting a parking spot, that's great service. That's what you guys want, and we think that's what you should get. So, anything I forgot, Kimberly?
I think that's everything.
So, I think the most important thing for you all to walk away with here today is knowing that the deficit that you've run for so long is being addressed and being taken care of. It is systematic, and we fully believe that in 2 years to 3 years that it will not only be out of the hole, you'll be to the good. And that's, again, I attribute the staff, the job that they're doing, and that we are paying attention. And the reason that I wanted to come before you and talk about it is to make sure. I think sometimes in my first 2 years here, my experience has been that the board members themselves have been budget side of the operation, and we feel like it's important for you to know. We want you to be able to go out if anybody asks you about the shape of the board. We want you to feel armed with that information and that you can talk about that. So, do you guys have any questions?
I'm glad to see the program of what you said, being connected. Sam Walton promoted that 40 years ago. He saw right quick that the customer is your bread and butter. And it don't make any difference whether it's internal customer or external customer.
That's absolutely right. And we,
And you can see what grew from Sam Walton's theory.
Well, yeah.
The largest retailer in the world.
the gentleman that actually started this particular course, it was the mind behind the Disney customer service effort. So if you've ever been to Disney, I mean, I lost a hat on the log ride at Disney World, and believe it or not, I went back the next morning and lost and found, and they had it. I couldn't believe it. I thought so. But that's good customer service, and that's what we want to do. We want to exceed your expectations, and we want that to be across the board.
That's why Walt Disney had an apartment, I call it an apartment built right on the grounds, so he could monitor what was going on. And that was his theory.
So any questions, you guys?
No, I don't have a question, but I have concern about a motel bill that returns in. That's one thing we always try to do, is try economical motel.
Yes, sir.
To spend the night when we come. And we used to stay at the Millennium, and they used to give us good rates. And it got to the point where during this time of season, when the Titans are in town, I guess it's for business, like they upped the rates. And it got really out of hand. And, we talk about it, we say, well, it's not coming out of our pocket. State's paying for it, but we still need to protect it because this is going to help our budget get a cheaper rate. So we switched from the Millennium to the Spring Hill. And we got pretty good rates there. But this morning we noticed our bills up from there.
$15.
Up to 100. Together we decided we're going to have to try to do something about that, even though You know, we pay for hours cash and then we turn in the bill and we get refunded. But at the same time, this is affecting our budget when we having to pay higher rates. And we're taking on our own, we don't know if it's been a problem or not, to try to find a cheaper rate that we can deal with and a nice place to stay too. So we are planning to go back to the Millennium, and they talk like, I think Larry had talked. We'll go back to them because I talked to the lady this morning about our bills. She said, well, we had made a reservation before we left at $107. And I gave her the slip showing that we had booked it at that rate. They said, well, we didn't know at the time. Well, I don't believe that because you got computers and everything. They know what the rates and where it's going to be. And I just looked and I said, I know what it's all about. It's the time of football season. You're going to kick it up so you can get more money.
After Saturday, the rates might drop.
She said after January, it's going
The
to
Titans.
drop back down.
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah. But we had already booked it at 107. And here we go. We have to, for this, even though we had it booked, we have to pay that high price. And she said, well, we didn't know. I said, well, we pay it this time, but, you know, we're going to do something about it.
Somebody knew because they raised it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was one thing we always have tried to keep our budget down, you know, on the cost for the motel, and we always work together on that and try to stay at the same.
Well, we appreciate that.
We also need guidance from the office, and I know we'll get it, on finances, such as raising the rates or reviewing all the rates. And, you know, when everything goes up, so the rates have to go up too. And we need to be cognizant of that situation, so that should we need to, we don't want to get in a 2-year hole like we once got into of a rate increase. There's no
Well-
such thing as a decrease anymore.
That's right. We would be happy to look at that. You know, of course, always the last resort for us is to raise the rate.
That's right.
And I think you guys have a higher than average license fee already. So that's why, again, it's, especially with your board, it's so critically important to us to manage what we're spending, to keep that license fee where we are as long as we can, and because it is not an easy thing to go change, and we
Oh,
believe.
that's right.
We think that we are proving that we can manage our, within our means. But, you know, that's not to say at some point that won't change, or that different needs arise and that we might need to do that, and certainly we can look at. I do think that lots of the technology investments that we're making, like we bought iPhones for your inspectors last year, and those kinds of investments, it doesn't show up immediately, but we believe that over the period of 3 to 4 years, you're going to begin to see some reduced costs because of the efficiencies that we experience. And with the new licensing system, we feel like we're going to be doing more interacting with people online. People are going to be renewing online at higher velocity. They're going to be buying online. We're moving to more paperless inspections, things like that reduce cost and time. We'll continue doing that. If we get to the point where we feel like, you know, we desperately are going to need a pricing,
We just need to be
yes.
forewarned.
And that's exactly
Yeah.
the reason for this, so we
That's
can
good.
keep you in the loop on where you are. With, you know, and letting you know that your management is active and constantly. Our aside from making sure that we protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public and getting your licensees licensed, the third most important thing that we do is to manage your money and to make sure that the statutorily required, that is our responsibility to not.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
Great job. Good job.
And appreciate the review of everything. Makes us feel a lot better to know where we stand.
Thank you, appreciate your
Good job,
time, and,
good
you know,
job.
again, don't hesitate to call and ask questions if you've got it.
All right, next on the agenda, Robin Wilson, Expert Ease Consulting LLC.
Thank you so much, Bill. Your iPads on page 3 have the presentation, and Ms. Wilson has come in the past with her associate, and now she's going to be talking to you about expertise consulting again, and we're looking at the 2014 seminars. You've got there in front of you. You want to take a quick minute to go through and see what the presentation for next year is, and she'll be happy to answer any questions you have. On page 5, as you keep moving, you have the dates for 2014 for their sessions as well. And then right after the presentation on page 8 is a quick Excel spreadsheet with the results and the questions from the first seminar that were turned in regarding the evaluations. And since then, we have received one from this last weekend. Their last session was 2 weekends ago on the 12th and 13th. And so then you're welcome to ask her any questions that you have or look through the material, but they want to go over their plans for 2014 with you.
Good morning. I want to, excuse me, before we get started, I want to make sure I'm on the right page
Absolutely.
before we get started.
Oh,
So,
setting the student on fire,
Yes, that is correct.
setting the future on fire, I mean.
That is correct. Setting the future on fire for 2014.
Yeah.
And so it should be the very first things on your iPad.
Mm-hmm.
yes, I see, okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep.
Some of these old people have trouble doing all that.
That's what we're here for. We will get it. Have any questions about the dates or the material? Besides Ms. Wilson being able to answer, we are going to ask for a motion for their 2014 seminar to be approved on the dates that they're presenting with the material that's in front of you.
Have they got dates for it?
Pardon me, Mr.?
Do they already have the dates set for it?
Yes, they
Yes, we
have. The dates are on page 5. February the 8th and 9th are the first dates, and that is in Nashville. April the 12th and 13th is in Memphis. Then in Nashville again on June 14th and 15th. August 9th and 10th is Pigeon Forge. And then the last session, October 11th and 12th, is in Chattanooga.
Make a motion, we accept.
We have a motion.
I just have one question.
Wait, let's get a sec. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Now, any comments?
Yeah, now, this seminar is gonna be for cosmetologists and barbers, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I do. The seminar is for barber and cosmetologists and instructors, am I correct?
Correct.
Would this be part of their curriculum to allow them to continue their,
Yes, they're.
the license?
This will meet their 16-hour
It will meet
continuing
their-
education requirement. That is
Okay,
correct.
okay.
And because this particular seminar starts early in February, they've already got an option to go. You know, before then, we didn't have seminars until closer to the summer. We're going to try to update our website as soon as possible, just so that that February class is out there for those that prefer going early in the year.
So will PSI be involved in this?
I don't know that they're going to be able to attend, given that it's 5 sessions. It makes it a little bit complicated, and your material's different. Go ahead and fill them in.
We do have a personal contact at PSI, and we get updated information from them that we then share. I put that information in a PowerPoint, and we do that presentation at the end, along with the state board information, because we understand they can't necessarily attend all 5 seminars. So we have that presentation, and anything that, any questions, because we have a Q&A session, that falls outside the scope of what we're sure of and what our information backs up, then we refer them to PSI and the state board with their questions.
And I probably will be attending the February one, just because it's the beginning of the year and it's a new topic, so that's my plan.
Well, I plan to be in April. I plan to be in April because it will be in my hometown, Memphis.
Okay.
So, will there be fees involved in terms of the registration fees for the instructors?
Yes, there are
Okay.
fees involved for the instructors.
Okay.
And there is an early registration fee, and then 30 days out, that fee changes, and then I think it's 14 days out, it changes again, and then they can pay at the door. Now, what we are offering this year that we're getting feedback. We had 3 seminars this past year, and we're getting feedback from instructors, especially the ones who have extenuating circumstances. For example, we had a lady who came to our seminar in Pigeon Forge in August, and she had signed up for the Milady seminar. And she attended that one for the first day on Sunday, and her father died that day. So she wasn't able to attend on Monday. And she then had to pay for our seminar and take our seminar in order to get all 16 of her hours. And what we're hearing is she would have liked to have had the option to do one day. And with the way that we set our seminar up, it's a series of 4 mini workshops. They can be done separately or together, because we do them sometimes for salons and that kind of thing. They can be done separately or together, and we're going to offer a one-day option this year for those people who may have gotten 8 hours in the past year and only need 8 more. So we'll offer that as an option because of the way our seminars are set up.
I'm planning on being there in Chattanooga at the Tennessee Technology Center
I'll be here
on
in
Alcoa
February.
Highway, so I'm planning
Okay.
on being there.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll have my business partner send emails to you all, or send emails so that we know exactly when you're planning to attend and in what city, so that we can account for you for
I'll be
meals,
in the Nashville,
meals and that kind of thing.
because it's.
We have 2 in
This is my
Nashville.
area, so
We have February and June here in Nashville.
So y'all haven't determined where it would be in Memphis yet?
But I can tell you that we are working with, and we've had a good experience with, Holiday Inn.
At the
and-
University of Memphis?
We're checking on the Memphis
Okay.
location. I think that's to be determined. We're firming that those, since we got approval, firm our dates up. But we've had a good experience working with the Holiday Inn. I heard you talking about rates and things earlier. And we're finding that people are really liking that they can come. And it's like other professional conferences that I've been to, where the conference is in the hotel where you stay, and all you have to do is get up and come downstairs, because we've had people bring their children, really little kids, and they wanted to go upstairs and check on them. When we had the one in Pigeon Forge, some people just made it a vacation. They brought their families. And so we're finding that that's really convenient for people to have them stay and have the conference in the same place. And we built a relationship with Holiday Inn, so it's looking like that's where it's going to be in each city.
Other questions that you can think of for Ms. Wilson while she's here?
I believe we got a motion and a second.
We do.
Any further discussion?
I will mention as well that our particular seminars focus on teaching methodology and classroom management and technology in the classroom, those kinds of things. We don't at this time have any plans for technical classes, meaning you're not gonna come in and get a hair cutting class or a hair coloring class. It's teaching methodology, classroom management, technology in the classroom, and reaching a broad range of students for student engagement. So,
That's what's needed most.
yeah,
Right.
that's what we're finding. That's the feedback we're getting.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Thank you. I
Thank-
will see you all when you attend. Thank you.
Yes.
Right.
Next will be the miscellaneous requests.
Yes.
Now, what?
You are
That's a
now-
new one.
You are now on your iPads on page 11, and we're going to start with a request to bring a license back from active duty from deployment. Mr. Andre L. Davis is in invalid status at this moment, and he would like to go back to active. He was allowed to, his license has been expired since August 31st of 2011. He was unable to attend in front of the board. 2001. He's unable to appear in person because he currently resides in Texas. He, through the telephone conversations, we've had a couple of calls with him. He has sent us documentation in support of his military active duty. And so if you'll scroll through your pages, you'll be able to see papers showing his deployment from 1997 all the way to his last deployment in April of 2012. The orders reflect his personal information, but they don't show us every place he's been between 2001 to present, so there's some pieces missing there. He is requesting that the board waive his fees because he's been on active military duty, and he's also requesting that we reinstate his license.
I'm sorry, the last part?
That we reinstate his license back to active. And so you have several documents here if you want to take a look.
If I understand this correctly, that the license, the last time the license was current was 2001.
And did he go in, I hadn't read all this, but did he go in the military? He wasn't in the military at that time, was he? He went
Well-
in later?
His papers actually show 1997 that he was in the
It's
military.
when he went in the military.
Right, and they do show that he was deployed. The problem is he didn't request to go inactive with us stating his military status, so he simply kind of expired, and we didn't know that that was the situation until now in the conversations with him. But he has presented his documentation showing that he has been all these years on active duty.
I certainly have, would like to see him granted his request for the time he was in the military. I have a problem with the time he let his license expire until he goes in the military. And I'm not sure that we need to do any financial arrangements for that period.
Right, and it looks like if we look at his documents on December 22nd of 1997 is where he was first deployed, and that is on page 15. So he would have been on active military in 97, therefore his 2001 date would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It falls within the guidelines.
It
Yeah.
falls within the guidelines,
Exactly.
correct.
Exactly.
But prior to that
He was current. Prior to
Exactly.
that, he was current. Right. It's in 2001 in August that he allowed it to expire, and we didn't know.
Was he overseas then?
The 97.
That's a 3-year period. I've not known, I mean, we're next to Fort Campbell, and most of their deployments are only for 12 to 15 months.
He's got various documents. The 1997 says Norfolk, Virginia. 2003 is the next document that shows active military duty, and that says San Diego, California. 2005 would be the next one. So they're, like I said, they're not all consistent. I don't know that they cover the entire span, but this is all he was able to provide us. 2008 is overseas. Let me see if I find where. And then the most current in 2012 is Japan.
In and out of the country, he could have, looks to me like he could have gotten that stuff taken care of.
Sorry, I'm trying to organize our microphone here. And folks, bear with me. It hurts to talk because I have my braces tightened. So if it takes me a minute, just bear with me. But the statute you're looking
Praying
at.
for you, Chris.
Do what?
We're praying for you.
Thank you. I take all I can get, I promise. TCA 62.3.120 covers automatic renewal for inductees in armed forces. Now, admittedly, the statute's a little ambiguous, but I'll read it to you anyway. The certificate of registration of any barber instructor, or technician who is inducted into the armed forces of the United States shall be automatically renewed at no charge for the duration of the period of service.
I can understand that.
No, and I get that too. I also understand Roxana's point about the documentation not covering all years necessarily. So if I may, try to propose something of a compromise that might adequately pay respect to his military service, but also get him where he needs to be. If the board were inclined to go under this statute to allow him to reinstate at no charge, I think it could impose conditions on that. And if the board wanted to do that, it could say, okay, well, if you want to be reinstated at no charge, we'll do that for you. But if you're not going to be planning on doing the active practice of barbering or whatnot, or you're going to be deployed again, then you need to go inactive, or this statute's not going to apply to you in the future, and you're going to have to pay the fees and take the test like anyone else. Because I just, knowing, have some military members in my family as well, and getting documents from the military is hurting cats and pulling teeth at the same time on occasion. So I'm not completely unsympathetic to him not having all the paperwork, but at the same time, the board's got to do its job as well. And so if that's the board's inclination, I think that could be a fair compromise to say, okay, we're gonna give you the statute, the benefit of the doubt this one time, but you're gonna have to stay on top of it. And if you are going to be deployed and not in need of your license, then you're going to need to contact us and go inactive beforehand. Otherwise, if you come back expired, you're not getting a second bite at the apple.
This law was written about the same time that World War II started, and when they were calling in the draft. And anyone who was drafted fell under this law. That was the reason for it. Inducted into, meaning drafted into the Army. Voluntary enlistment and this sort of thing has never been included in it. The law has never been changed, but they haven't inducted anybody into the armed forces in how many years?
Since they went on volunteer
Since we went on voluntary status.
yeah, which was about 10 years ago or more.
More than that.
More than that.
Could have been, yeah.
Because I was in the middle of it.
My only point, Mr. Payne, is that, and I did state at the outset, the statute is a little bit ambiguous. I'm aware of the generally accepted meaning of the word inducted, but I think there's sufficient gray area there for the board to, and there's not really clear guidance in the rules either that would really flesh out exactly what that means and exactly which circumstances it applies
No,
to.
that's prior boards not doing their job by letting a law like this stay on the books for this many years.
Well, with
So
respect, Mr. Payne,
he
this
can
is,
fall through the cracks. I mean, that's what it amounts to. You're gonna let him fall through the crack, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with it.
No,
But I
this
think
is
the law needs to be addressed.
well, sure, but this is actually a statute as opposed to a rule, and most of the time the board actually doesn't write statutes all that much. It does a lot more rule writing because it's the legislature, as you can see, 1951, and then looks like it got updated in 1986. But the board certainly can, as it is currently doing, make requests of the legislature to change the law and as it believes necessary. But the principal job of legislation is mostly the province of the legislature, whereas the province of this board is rulemaking to set forth specifically what the legislation itself means and how it will apply.
I'm very sympathetic to military, and I would like to do everything possible for any military person. And whatever we can work out, certainly I'd like to see it happen. But, you know, there's certain things we've got to use as guidelines.
Sure.
So anything we can work at, and records are not really that hard to get. I went in 47 and came out in late 52. And just a couple of years ago, like in Tennessee, and every state has the same thing, I went to the Veterans Affairs office and they wrote off, and and within 3 weeks I had a stack from every minute I was in the service. So they're not that hard to get. Sometimes you pull pages out that you don't want to use.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I will leave that to the board's determination. Whichever way you want to go is fine. My role there was to advise that I think you probably have enough discretion to go either way you would like to, and we'll leave it up to you.
Okay, board member.
My experience, when I went into military in '64, I was already a master barber. I went right in barber cars out of high school. Now I was going to college here at Tennessee State, which A&I at the time. I was drafted, but I got deferred because I was in college. That's the way the draft was. And I decided I would just go ahead on and quit school and volunteer and went on in the military. But during that particular time, I didn't renew my license because I contacted the board, and they told me during the time I was in the military I did not have to renew them. And then out of the service, I had a 3-year gap without license because I've kept every license I've ever had for barber. And I contacted them, and they renewed. I started back renewing my license in '67. But some things that you have to do on your own. By me being in the military, and when I come out, I immediately contacted the board because I wanted to keep my license up, current. So I took it on my own to contact them. But I guess if I had just went on and ignored it, I probably would have had a problem getting my license renewed at that particular time.
Okay, we have a proposal in front of us.
And his request is two-part. It's to waive the fees for these years, which, as Chris read, we're
Now,
definitely
is
able
this
to do.
waiving the fee from the very first, or just for the military time?
Well, according to his records, he's been in the military since 1997. So it would be from 2001 when he expired
Okay,
all the way to now, so he wouldn't owe any fees. And then we would reinstate his license to active. What Chris proposed is in the letter we could say, and if he would like to go inactive, because then we wouldn't have any concern about fees, that he can do so and give him the proper form to fill out to place it inactive, because he lives in Texas. So it could be that he's
Okay.
wanting his Texas license through his Tennessee information.
okay, do we have a motion?
I like
To work the system.
the motion that we accept Chris' recommendation, and along with the letter, please include that this be the one and only time.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion passed. Okay.
Wonderful. Next on our list is a master barber who is requesting an extension of his 6-month of his license. Rule 200-1-.10 is the rule that talks about the 6 months requiring an individual to apply for their license, and he did not. So the applicant would need to retest in order to be able to receive his license. Mr. Cunningham took and passed his exams in February of 2013, the second part of his exam, and he missed that 6-month gap by about a month and a half. In July of 2012, however, he had signed his agreed order because he had a felony on his record. And so On your iPads is a letter from Mr. Cunningham explaining his situation that I'd like you to review. And then I've also included the letter of recommendation is there, and the agreed order that he signed, again, goes back to July 18th of 2012. So he's been in this process for a bit of time.
Give him an extension, that is to be a first, because I can't go back on the books anywhere and find that anybody's ever had an extension. If you don't take your test within 6 months, you gotta come back and take it again.
Well, he's taken and passed both tests. What he has not done is paid for his license.
Right.
Right.
Well, and for the record, the rule itself is actually clear on this, and it seems mandatory, unfortunately, not discretionary, and I'll read it to you. The fee for an original certificate of registration as a master barber, technician, or instructor must be paid within 6 months after the applicant is notified that they have qualified for registration. If such fee is not timely paid, the applicant must reapply for, take, and pass the examination for a certificate of registration.
If they really wanted to give leeway, they use may instead of must.
Right.
Or, I've also seen rules that say the board may, in its sole discretion for
Yeah.
good cause shown, waive this requirement. But no such discretionary language exists here, and therefore I don't really think the board has authority to grant Mr. Cunningham's request, unfortunately.
Okay, we're
You know,
ready for.
I see, I can understand, anyway, Mr. Cunningham, I appreciate how he's interested in his family, want to take care of children, but I can't see how we could waive that no kind of way, because
take your
those are
business.
personal problems. I think he should be made to pay the fee.
Okay, we're ready for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Cunningham be made to pay for his examination fee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. Next is reciprocity.
No, we've got an extension for continuing education,
Okay.
and we are on page 29 on your iPads. This request is from Ms. Estelle Lewis. Previous requests have extended her continuing education from 2012 to 2013. She was unable to attend that instructor symposium due to health reasons. Medical documentation is provided explaining her health. Per her letter, her request is not only for an extension of time, but also for an exemption of this rule. I thought I'd put it there since she has that in writing in her letter.
My computer won't stay up.
Do what?
My computer won't stay up. It keeps,
Falling asleep?
yeah, going to sleep.
Well, this letter, the letter I'm reading is from an Amy Powers, an APN. And I don't know what the A stands for. I guess the PN is practical nurse.
Oh, yeah, that is correct. That is her medical license, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is correct. That's from her.
And, you know, if she is unable to work due to her low back pain, she has had surgery with little relief. She also suffers from hip pain due to osteoarthritis. I don't know that those problems now. So you have any questions, contact me. But this is, it's not a doctor, it's,
If you continue, you've got more medical.
okay.
But she's asking for exemption and not an extension.
She's asking for two different things, so we'll.
Mine just goes crazy.
And Chris will correct us if we can do both, but she's asking for continuing education to be extended if she is allowed to
This
take
is
it.
request for seminar.
And if we can, or you all can, to actually forgive her from taking continuing education. The only seminar, well, the last seminar she attended, and it's the only one, is in 2009, so. She was granted an extension to 2013.
She's asking for another one.
No.
I'm wondering with these kind of problems and missing two, I doubt,
Could you be, imagine what that would do to you as an employer if you had that employed
yeah.
and trying to keep students in school?
Okay, you have everything before you.
I make a motion, we deny.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Next is our applications for examination. We have in front of you documentations for Jerry Burkus, Chase Coleman, Johnton Collins, Gabriel Moore, Eugene Baird, Jason Needle, Patrick Thurmond, and Nathan Werer, who have felonies and have been submitted to, in front of the board for their approval. The required information, disclosure of the student, and the letter of recommendation from the school is all submitted on your iPads.
And then it goes to calendar, data, plan, usage.
That's odd. There you go.
She switched with me and it went
I
crazy.
think you're.
Ralph, that's the third one you've broken.
I know. I need to get my kid up here.
You're granting a lot of people that have served time. Seems like every request is a person that's been convicted of up to serious crimes. I sure hope we're doing the right thing by letting them into the barber profession.
The one that we let in robbed me about 3 weeks ago.
That's what I worry about. And it seems like
Back
maybe
in jail now.
that's an easy path, and I don't know whether the United States government is paying for the training.
They're doing it while they're locked down, then yes, but sometimes they have to finish when they get out. It just depends.
I would presume that's under some kind of a grant.
Oh, yeah. They all
just-
get full grants.
That
Student loans.
worries me that
Yeah.
so many we're approving. Seems like they're the only ones going into the barber profession now.
Well, they're the only ones that
That we
have to
see.
come in front of you for
Right.
approval. We can approve the others.
Yeah, there's a number of young men and women that's in barber school that's not felons.
Oh, absolutely.
And-
Well, yeah,
and
I
of
know
course,
that, but it just bothers me so
yeah.
many that we're
Yeah.
approving.
Yeah.
And when you look at what they were incarcerated for, it gives you some thought, worry.
Well, and Mr. President and Board, just for the record, you're under no obligation to approve any of these folks. Just because it's standard board practice to allow the agreed order of probation, that can not be standard board practice as soon as you say it is. I mean, the statute's very clear that conviction of a felony shown by certified copy of the record of the court of conviction, TCA 62-3-121, that's refused to issue. That is a clear ground. So if you look at the situation, I mean, I think there's a difference between, let's say, someone who was convicted of marijuana possession 10 years ago and has been on a straight and narrow since then.
That's right.
Versus somebody who strong arm robbery someone 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That, I mean,
That
and
would
those,
make a difference.
and those are the things that I think the board can and does and should take into consideration. And if the board feels that any or all of these applicants are insufficiently rehabilitated or have committed such a serious crime that more time passage is warranted before they are allowed to enter the profession, then that should be all on the table for consideration at the time you're looking at these. So that's why it's so important that
That's right.
each of these applications are scrutinized so that you see what the applicants have done. And, I think their explanation letters are important too, because that will give you an idea of if they're just, maybe this is the easiest way I can think of to get a job and maybe make some money that doesn't involve crime, or whether they genuinely care about the profession and want to do it and make it part of their life change to not go back to where they were.
Right. Well, this boy seems to have stayed out of trouble since 2005. His last conviction was 2004.
What was he convicted for?
Controlled substance.
Yeah, well, that's,
That could be anything from 5 marijuana cigarettes up.
yeah.
If I may make a
When I,
statement.
I'm sorry.
There was a previous board member, Mr. Winfrey. When I first came on the board, Mr. Winfrey was here, and he would make statements whenever there was an issue that came up that the board would consider not allowing someone not to have the opportunity to work. And he said that, and I always remember it, said that he did not feel that this board should prevent anyone from working. Certainly, I'm not speaking of dangerous criminals, but I just believe in my heart that if someone take the time to work on and develop and get 1,500 hours, I just believe that they may be trying to rehabilitate themselves. That we have young people that is not criminals that have went to the schools and got 1,500 hours and cutting hair in the house, and we're not doing anything about that. I would caution the board. Whatever the board does is fine, but I would caution the board to be a little bit more compassionate about people, because we don't know who is really a criminal and who is not. There may be someone that we may reject, and they may really be trying to be a good barber out there. We need good barbers. There's so many more cosmetologists out here and so little barbers. We need good barbers. What my concern is, if we can do something about these young people who are bootlegging haircuts.
Exactly.
That's hurting my business. I have a barber in my salon right now that's a convicted felon. And to be quite frankly, he's more dependable than barbers I have in there that's not convicted felons.
Well, I don't know of
Yeah.
any board that's been more compassionate than this board.
Well, I agree.
But,
I agree, but
I just made that statement because it's starting to worry me just a little when I see some of these crimes of
Yeah.
rape
Yeah, I agree.
and certain types of burglary. They're not just little innocent crimes.
Well, and perhaps I might not have stated as clearly as I could have. What I meant to say is you try to balance it out.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
And the fact that someone has undertaken the time and effort to get this much education and to be in a position to come before this board for licensure in the first place has at least earned them somewhat of the benefit of the doubt, I think.
Exactly.
And with that said, the board's primary mission, as it always is the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And if, in the board's opinion, the severity or nature of the crimes for which this person was convicted or pled guilty to would in any way potentially endanger the health, safety, and welfare of the public, I think that's where the board has to step up and take its responsibility and say, you know what, maybe it's this person because they have the potential to endanger the people we're charged with protecting. It's those folks that deserve the closest scrutiny by the board, but, I guess that's what I was trying to say. It's not an easy decision either way, and there's lots more gray than there is black and white in stuff like this. So I completely hear what you're saying, Mr. Collins. I think it's a good thing to keep in
Okay,
mind.
you've got everything before you.
I have another comment on this. When we're looking at this, I think the recommendations that we get from the instructors of the school that they attend, I think that should have a lot of bearing on it too. We need to pay more attention to that. I don't think that the school owners and the instructors are going to put somebody back out there in the street not knowing if that person is going to really make it or not have confidence in it. So I think if we pay more attention to the school that they're coming from and the recommendation, I think that will help us a lot too on
Most of
on
these
these
letters
if we
from schools
decide
are
to.
form letters.
That's what I was going to say. That's an excellent point. I mean,
I'm in the schools, and I've looked at records before, and they're all just form letters. They type up one letter and change the names.
but if an applicant does have an instructor who took the time to personalize it, and it's clearly not a form letter, then that is a mark to the good
Right.
in favor of,
I agree with you
of their
100%.
application.
I think we really should look at these things on
I
an
guess-
individual basis.
Just looking at this one, this kind of opened my eyes a little when it says offenses: forgery up to $1,000, identity theft, theft of property $1,000, aggravated burglary, theft of property $1,000. 5 offenses.
Which individual are you looking at, Mr. President?
Looks like Jason Needle.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, I just flipped on that one, but when I saw all those offenses, that made me open my eyes a little as to what we have been doing, and there again, we want to be a compassionate board. We do want to put everybody back to work, but we certainly need to take a hard look at some of these for the safety of the public.
Well, the bottom line is that the board does have an oversight role in this, and I think this board's been doing a good job of that so far, and all of the comments are well taken about balancing the need to provide an opportunity for folks who have strayed off the beaten path but are trying to do better to have an opportunity to come back into a civilized life with productive job and things of that nature.
And that's the greatest thing we can do, is put
Sure.
somebody back in. Okay, you've heard all the conversation. Do we have a motion?
I motion that we do as the board has previously done and approve these applicants along with them signing a waiver. That's the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
I just want to clarify that waiver is actually the agreed order.
Agreed order, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Fantastic.
Yeah, agreed
Okay,
order.
so we are going to start on the reciprocity applications. We don't always have these, and so the first individual on your list is a master barber license from Jordan for Mr. Adel Hassan O'Day. The letter from the National Barber Academy is provided where they explain that they try to assist members of the community. And also included is transcript of hours that he obtained from Jordan and the translation of those documentations. Jordan, being an international country doesn't have the same licensing that we do, so we don't have what we normally request. So I am making the recommendation that he take the Tennessee examination, if you accept the hours and are okay with everything else.
Barber Academy would be recommending this. I personally would go along with your recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion, is making that a motion, okay. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the motion carried.
We have 3 individuals following, 1, 2, 3, 4, that are applying for reciprocity from Puerto Rico. And so before I go one by one, I just want to give you a little bit of history of what I've been trying to do with Puerto Rico as I've been trying to find a way and an individual to help me verify these licenses. And I've put them in front of the board so you can see them, because up until very late Friday, and I've been trying for several months, I was unsuccessful. Friday, I finally did reach someone and have now a method online that I can verify licenses. So as I go through each one, none of these are able to be verified. So they're not really licensed in Puerto Rico, even though the documents that you'll see do look like they're from Puerto Rico. So the first applicant in front of us for Master Barber out of Puerto Rico is Jose Garcia. Certification was mailed directly to the board with the transcript of hours and supporting documentation. The board office was unable to verify the authenticity of the documents with the secretary, auxiliary secretary there. The records do show 1,500 hours and licensure by exam in 2007, where he passed both exams. And then generally, the licensure certification is received from other states directly to our office. In this case, for these individuals from Puerto Rico, they were mailed by the individual. And so my recommendation is that they be denied. And mostly because.
Make a motion that we deny.
I second it.
We
We
all
have a
second
motion,
it.
do we have a second?
Yeah.
second it.
we have to
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the ayes have it. Motion carried.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, if these individuals are able to get certified documentation from the right places mailed directly here, might the board reconsider that at the appropriate time if it's not coming just from them personally?
The only
you can
problem with that is that now that I do have a contact in Puerto Rico, I can verify that the license number provided on these documents does not match their
Okay.
name.
Okay,
that's
that's it.
it.
That's
We've
it.
had this before.
Okay.
That's enough.
Okay.
So the next individual, also from Puerto Rico, is Mr. Eduardo Moran. Again, he has certification mailed with a transcript of hours, supporting information, 1,500 hours received by examination and licensed in 2001. Late Friday, we were able to confirm that that license number did not belong to him. So my recommendation would be that we.
I make a motion that we deny this application.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the ayes have it. Motion carried.
Next on the list is also an applicant with certification from Puerto Rico. His name is Roberto Feliciano. Information was mailed directly to the board office. The documents show 1,500 hours, licensure by examination in 2005. I was able to look at that number late Friday and verify that it did not belong to him. So my recommendation would be that we deny.
I like to
Motion
make a
made.
motion that we deny him also.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
The last reciprocity application is from Puerto Rico for Ibriel Rivera. Transcript shows 1,155 hours from Puerto Rico completed in 2011. Notarized letter is attached with an employment history from 2004 through 2011. His application's a little bit different, but again, based on the online system that we now have, I couldn't verify his license belonging to this individual. So my recommendation, unless they can show us something different, would be that we deny.
Motion made.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Next on your iPads is information about the schools that we talked about, but I'd like to first fill you in on the PSI change and how that's going, if you have a moment, and then we will get to what we left last meeting where we wanted to talk about inspecting the schools. The 3 open house sessions for PSI were held. They were very successful. As you all know, and we've approved, the schools now are able to set up and send their completions directly to PSI via an online secure site. Each school has been given their login and password, and that started on October the 1st. We're using October, November, and December for schools to try this out. We're encouraging that that's what they do, so that by the time it's mandatory the first week in January, they are all set up with using the system for all their completions. Most of the calls that we're getting is schools wanting to know now where to mail the paper to. So it's a hard connection to realize that they don't need to mail the paper anymore. I think that they're very pleased with it. We've gotten calls back from instructors and schools saying, you know, this really was that easy and it seems to be working well. PSI has worked out a couple of the bumps, so we have increased calls, which is exactly what we wanted. We wanted the instructors and school administrators to call us with any questions, but it seems to be going very well.
I highly recommend it.
Good. So you've been
Our
able.
school is using it, and we're very satisfied with it.
That's wonderful.
I sent 2 girls here for the meeting, and
Okay.
they came back highly praised the meeting.
Wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. PSI is going to do a webinar that'll be posted on our website. And as Assistant Commissioner Giannini mentioned, and we talked about at the last meeting, if you do sign up for that email notify, those email blasts are for important updates. And so when the webinar date is given to us, and I have a feeling it'll be the last couple of days in October, we'll send an email for anybody that's interested in attending and watching that on their computer at their offices. So that's the last piece that's missing. The inspector training this year was held on September the 30th. The 2 boards have a total of 10 inspectors now. And so they all attended. It was a day for them to hear updates about rule changes, the laws, kind of come together and be consistent with how they do things. We had both Chris and Rob with the Cosmetology Board speak and explain how the notices of violation should be done, what the best practice is for when there is a violation, to use their iPhones more, so that, and back to kind of the budget piece and the finances, if we take pictures of what they're seeing as a sanitation violation, and all those things help the cases move along. And so I think with better training, it'll be a good thing. They all seem to be very excited with the meeting, took a lot out of it, and then we took advantage of the meeting being here on the first day to keep them the second day for that customer-focused government that Assistant Commissioner spoke about. So they attended that session along with all the other board staff. And I think it was very good for them all to do the customer focus group. Again, when we go out to the shops and the schools, it's not really it's to educate them on what could be done better. And so they're learning that and incorporating that, and then always keeping in mind when something isn't done right and there is a violation, what the best way is to handle that. You know, when to educate and when it's enough. So they were able to do both those training sessions when they were here. On your iPads, one of the last things that I've got, I kind of did a spreadsheet of all 22 Barber schools that you have. And we talked about this at the meeting on August the 19th. We discussed Barber board members being able to do the inspections, and Chris and I talked about it, and the statute, of course, has no problem with that. So 4 of you would be able to do the 22 schools that are listed here. I wanted you to have a chance to look at them. I sorted them by county, as you can see, just so that if you did want to talk about it, have anything else for me to research for you, my recommendation if we're going would be to start fresh January of 2014, if that sounds good with you, and break up the schools so that each one has, 4 or 5 schools on their list that you would be responsible for doing, and we could start fresh at the beginning of the year. They've all been inspected by our, inspectors, or the board inspectors, and so they're current with that. And this was really a good opportunity for us to kind of look and make sure that any school that possibly has closed has given us the information. We had 2 that we needed to kind of call and look at. And so this is the list of what we have, and if you have any other questions or thoughts.
I have a concern, since you brought this up. Mr. Towers Brooks, I got a call from him, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he just opened up a school in Memphis, a new school in Winchester. And he called me because he was concerned that Mr. Biddle had come by his school to inspect it prior to him opening. And he said that he was concerned whether or not he was legal to open it because I was not there. But he said Mr. Biddle had called the board, and the board had given him permission to inspect his school since he was already there. And I quote, since he was already there. And so I'm concerned about that because I didn't get any notification or an appointment or anything like that or anything from the board as to, because I was concerned about when he was going to open that school up.
Well, and for them to open a school, the board has to approve it. Is the school on this list that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, it's not on this
Okay.
list, but he
be
has the
operating.
Barber school. But yes, it is here on Winchester. On Winchester, 67, 69
Memphis
Winchester.
Academy of Barber.
Okay, Memphis Academy.
It's like
You
13.
really shouldn't be operating without board inspection.
That's exactly right.
Well, he's opened, and I was concerned. Well, in fact, he was concerned about it because he was wondering whether or not he was legal to open because I was not there. Because Mr. Bill and I have always been together to inspect the school prior to them opening, and so I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how can Mr. Bill inspect that school and I was not there? And he's very concerned about that. So I'm
And the
glad you
rule
brought that
doesn't
up.
say that they have to open or inspect together. Am I correct? You'll look.
I don't think it,
Inspector
Well,
of both.
well, normally Mr. Bill and I would go together.
Right, right.
He would contact me and we would go together.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we normally do.
And I will look at that school. I want to
Yeah.
make sure that when it was inspected, the board had properly
Yeah.
approved it, because it,
Yeah, we
isn't-
approved
okay.
for him to open, but
Right.
but I hadn't inspected it.
got.
Right.
And until you inspected, you are correct. It needs both inspections in order
Right,
to open.
Right.
Now, I don't
Mr.
think-
Collins, have you gone out there yet? or
No.
Okay.
No, I have not been out there.
Okay.
Now, I don't think Mr. Brooks should be punished for this because he was only doing what the inspector told him that he had the rights to do. So you have to look at the inspector.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, you don't have to go together. I
No,
think
we
many
don't.
times it's a better thing to go together.
I would like to go with him.
Right.
I shared it with him because he would know what to look for better than I would.
Right.
I just like to be there.
Right.
And
right.
so,
And a lot of times that really.
and he was concerned about that because he was wondering whether or not he was legal to open the school since I was not there. In
Well,
fact, I
and-
haven't even signed off on the paperwork.
And in point of fact, Roxanna is correct that you are not required to go together, but a board member is the only one authorized to actually okay
Open
the
this-
opening.
exactly,
So Mr.
exactly.
Biddle or any other inspector cannot tell a new school on their own authority that you can go ahead and open.
But Mr. Brooks is open.
Well, that will be addressed
I
in
have
due
not been there.
course, but I'm just going from the legal standpoint because I'm presuming you brought it up because you wanted to know what you're looking at here, that's all.
Yeah, so we will follow up and I will personally speak to Mr. Brooks. I'll find out what happened from the inspector's side, but without you approving it and both those dates in our system, a license won't go out. So in essence, the school doesn't have a license to operate yet. So I'll look into it, and then when we meet next month, I will update you on.
And if I need to visit the school
Yeah.
prior to us meeting next month, just send me an email.
I will,
And I will run over there.
right.
The school on Clarksville Highway was open the same way. an inspector went out and opened it, and I never made the, inspection there.
Because I mean, he's doing what he need to do. I just want to make sure that he's doing the correct thing. And so if I am the board member, then I need to be there. And so if I have to go tomorrow, I go tomorrow. I mean, you know,
I just
I just want to make sure he's legitimate.
Yeah. I will be happy to send you an email. That way we can get it
Very
done
good.
quicker. Absolutely.
Okay.
Excel, it's on Hamilton Road. Barber College on Hamilton Road. It's actually on, it's in a shopping mall there on Clarksville Highway. We refused to license him the first time he tried to open because he was working barbers in there and had no students. They had a barber shop running into a barber school. And we closed him down and told him that he needed to either run a barber shop or a barber school. And he decided to run a barber shop. And then later he came back and requested to open the school, that he had closed the barber shop and he was going to put a school in. And we said okay, the barber board said okay, but the barber went out and inspected it, and then, as far as I know, he's teaching or has students out there, so somebody needs to check it again.
Tell me which school it is again, Mr. Payne?
It's XL
Number 52.
on Hamilton.
License 52.
3532 West Hamilton Road.
Gotcha.
That's the one.
So if you have any other questions to bring us back to the issue of the four Barber board members that can inspect the schools, starting in 2014, if that's what you're interested in.
Right, we are interested in that, and we need to just mention it in your next meeting with your inspectors. Hey, you
Yes.
can't open these schools.
Oh, absolutely, that's
Without a board
separate. Oh,
member.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's,
And then we'll gladly get with them, you know, I mean, I have no
Right.
problem with it,
right.
getting with them to do that.
And that's for the opening of a new school, which is
Right.
completely
And we
different.
need
That's
inspection
never
sheets.
changed.
Right.
We need inspection sheets to carry with us. We, boys have some old ones, but the new ones have not been issued to us.
Okay.
So,
All right. Is that your report?
That is the last of it. Now, regarding the schools, am I correct? Do you want to make a motion to start doing the annual inspections on the schools, or do we want to talk about that next month again?
We have always made the annual
annual
inspection
inspections, yeah.
to open a school.
No, not to open.
Not
No,
to-
we do.
on the
No,
school.
not
The
to
board
Not to
does.
open.
We're mixing two things, right? I
Or
understand
so
to
you
open, that's
talking
a
about
problem.
Just inspection,
Annual
period,
inspection.
annual
Right.
inspection.
You had
Right.
said that you wanted to start inspecting again, so that's why the
Yeah.
list is here to decide.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I definitely think we should.
Yeah, I
There
think we
is too
should.
many of them
We should.
Yeah.
Need
just
a
running
motion.
wide open.
Well, I'd like to make the motion that the board members would begin annually inspecting barber schools in our areas, our districts.
Second.
We have a, do you want to put a date on that, like
January,
January
if
of
it's okay,
2014?
January
January
2014.
Okay,
Now
we
there
have a
can't-
motion and we have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want one question. Now, we'll only be allowed to inspect the schools in our district, right? The
Correct,
school that we're
correct.
over.
That's why I
Okay.
kind of sorted them by county so you can
Okay.
see where you're at.
All
Now,
right.
there can't be a conflict of interest, so as of right now, not for the opening, but it would just be the four that aren't a school member without
Yeah,
Mr.
I mean,
Payne.
I'm in my own district, so
Exactly.
Joe usually comes by and
Perfect.
checks ours.
So these are for the annual inspections. So then I'll get you by January a list of which ones would be in your area
Okay.
and some dates.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Okay.
Next on the agenda,
Is the consent orders.
consent orders.
For September, and this is on page 105, for September, we have two consent orders totaling $500. We need a motion to accept and approve these.
Motion made to accept.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. legal report.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your legal report, you'll notice that there are 4 items for consideration this time. I will go through one at a time. Be happy to entertain any questions. May have a little bit of discussion on number 4 as to just what to do in terms of the recommendation, but so let's go ahead and get started. Item number 1, complaint number 2013-011281. It's actually the matter from last time that the board voted to table regarding the dog and the dog bed issue. Did have an opportunity to follow up with the inspector who performed that inspection. Said that in her opinion it did not appear that that was a service animal and no mention of that was made at the time of the inspection. As such, the recommendation will be for a civil penalty of $250 and a requirement that the owner remove the dog and the dog bed from the shop. Item number 2, complaint number 2013-015321. A notice of violation alleges that the inspector observed an unlicensed individual cutting a client's hair in a licensed barber shop and also observed a licensed barber with a laminated license. The inspector further observed unclean surfaces at the shop at inspection time. Recommendation, in accordance with prior board practice, is a consent order with a $500 civil penalty. Item number 3, notice of violation alleges that the inspector observed an unlicensed individual performing services in a licensed barber shop. The inspector states that the individual in question advised that he was there to clean the shop. The inspector states that she left several phone messages for the shop owner to complete a change of ownership application, which was submitted to the board office on April 30, 2013, but no response was received. There's no indication that barbering services were actually being provided at the time of inspection. Therefore, the recommendation is to close with a letter of warning, which would basically say, if there's still barber services being performed here, you know, you've got to be current, and if there's a change of ownership, you got to complete that. If not, you know, it's just a caution because the only person actually there at the time appeared to be cleaning and not cutting hair. Then item number 4, complaint number 2013-016011. This is a consumer complaint. It alleges that a barber whose license had been expired since October 2008 was still practicing in the shop. A notice alleges that there were 3 barbers practicing on clients' hair in the respondent's shop, including the individual in question. Additionally, the area observer observed an expired license posted in the shop, and as you can see, multiple sanitation violations. It should be noted the respondent has another complaint pending for allowing barbers to practice in a shop with an expired license. On the other complaint, the board authorized a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order and a $1,000 civil penalty. As of this date, the respondent does not appear to have settled the other complaint, and that complaint has been authorized for a formal hearing. The recommendation in front of you is to simply refer this directly to litigation for a formal hearing. I just, you know, typically the highest civil penalty that I've seen this board authorize is $1,000, and it's already done that once for the first complaint, and that settlement offer was not accepted, and so I think the board can only safely presume that matter, at least as of now, is not going to be settled and will probably have to go to a formal hearing anyway. So that's the reason for direct referral of this one to go at the same time as the other one. Now, if the licensee in question comes back and says, no, you know, I'd like to try and do something to settle both of them, then perhaps, you know, these matters might come back before the board for a potential global settlement of all violations. But at this time, unless the board has other ideas, the recommendation would be for direct referral straight to litigation.
Can you send him a letter with close and desist? He needs to close that shop up until he gets it squared away.
Operating without license and all that.
Yeah. Operating without license, hasn't paid his penalty. That shop needs to be shut down.
My recommendation would be for him to be closed down, and he could come here for a formal hearing if he want to reopen.
I mean, when you have a license that is valid, the board has to have some action to take that away. And, cease and desist notice is typically for unlicensed entities that are trying to do business without the benefit of a license. The shop has a current license, so in order to shut down its ability to do business, the board has to take lawful action in order to revoke that license, and that's through the formal hearing process.
It says here that respondent has another complaint pending for barbers practicing with, in a shop with expired license.
Well, as I understand it, the license was renewed so that it's current now, but the underlying complaint, which led to that $1,000 civil penalty offer, was not accepted. So, and this is across any regulatory programs, if you have a complaint or even multiple complaints against you, until those complaints are either settled by admissions and a consent order, civil penalties and whatnot, or gone through the formal hearing process and had an administrative law judge and or a board make findings that violations have been committed, the same presumption of innocence that applies on the criminal side applies here. And what that means is as long as he was within the law and rules time period to renew his expired license, or the shop's expired license, which it was, he had the right to do so. Now, that doesn't mean that the board can't, on the basis of these complaints via the formal hearing process, revoke his license if that is the board's choice. But that would have to be done, since it is a valid license at this point, through the formal hearing process.
Seems to me like if we let them get their license and they owe money for fines and they're not cleaned up their act, I don't understand that. I mean, if you came to me with that, I'd say, no, you clean up your act and then we'll give you your license. I don't see where we have to give them their license and let them say, we don't support you in any way. We're not paying the fine because we have a license that's not out there and operate.
I mean, it's a fair.
That's what they're doing.
There
They're
should
not
be
paying their
authority
fine.
to withhold license if anything's pending.
Yeah.
I still say, I think he need to be brought in for at least a formal hearing.
Well, and that's, that's going to be the avenue available at this point, so, that's why it's the recommendation. That'll get it the most directly. I'm not exactly sure how soon that can be done because do we even have a litigator assigned to us at this point? We don't. So we are working on that, but that is the place that this complaint needs to go along with the other one. And, push comes to shove, we will figure out somebody to start trying cases, even if it's only on an interim basis. But that's something that we have to go with what we have, which right now is not an assigned litigator, but we are working on it. There are new folks kind of in authority, new general counsel and whatnot, and there's some assignment redistributions probably coming in the near future. And it's not dissimilar to when I'm still program counsel for the accountancy board. We were without a litigator for almost a year. And we obviously don't want that to be the case here, and it hasn't been anywhere near that long. But it has happened before, and we do everything we can to make it not stay that way. But in the interim, it appears this would be the proper step to take for this complaint in the meantime.
Okay, proceed on.
That's all of the legal report. So if there are any further questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, or any amended recommendations. Otherwise, we'd entertain a motion and a vote to approve the legal report.
Need a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and, we need a motion.
I motion that we accept the legal report.
Okay, we have a motion, now we need a second.
I second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Yeah, the ayes have it.
I have a question. We're for adjournment. Have we heard anything back from the general attorney?
We have not at this time. but I will check on that. I don't even know who that request has been assigned to. Because the way those work is you send it over in the name of the Attorney General himself, and then the request gets handed off to an assistant
Hands
AG.
down, yeah.
And then once the research is done, then it will go back to the AG himself to take a look at before it goes out back to us.
That'd take 3-4 months.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, we need a motion for
Motion to
adjournment.
adjourn.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
A second?
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion granted. Do you need any of this paperwork or all of it back?
Parts of it, let me make sure.
I'm sorry.
Right.